In the first place, the administration, the Bahai Covenant administration, that structure is the Bahai government. The way the executive branch of the government works is it's educational. And because the people are more or less self-governing, when the knowledge is produced as far as what solutions or things need to take place, the people are able to implement that. But they do this through their national and local councils. So the administration's like the government. For instance, a corporation like IBM or the Ford Motor Company, they have a government inside the company that runs the business. It's the administration of the business. So the Bahai administration is set up for the Bahais to get together and solve their differences and plan different activities like feasts and teaching efforts and building mashriq al-azkars, temples, and setting up the auxiliary institutions that are there to help people for education, a hospice, a pharmacy, and other social services like an orphanage and a care place for travelers, a hostel, a hospice, and things like this. So there has to be some sort of administration, which is the government of this. As far as the governments of the world that govern, like the nation states and the cities that we live in being Bahai governments, that just has to do with the fact of the matter if the qualities and attributes of the government are Bahai, meaning if the governments are set up in the different countries and cities to serve the people and to bring about the oneness of humanity and things like this. In the Book of the Covenant, Baha'u'llah is very clear that the governments of the earth, meaning the material government of the world, has been vouchsafed to the rulers of the world who are in those positions right now. But he says that the hearts of the people belong to God. So back in the days of Shoghi Effendi, when a lot of people started to come into the Bahai faith after World War I and World War II especially, and they set up and joined a Bahai administration, which Shoghi Effendi had styled back then as local spiritual assemblies and national spiritual assemblies. Somehow they got it in their mind that those positions in the Bahai administration would be positions in the future government of the material world. And this is wrong thinking. And also they confused position and station. The station has to do with the spiritual perfection of ourself, and a position is a role we have externally in administration or in society or some other function that we have. And these two things are conflated. And that's where the people went into error after 1960, is they think that they're setting up a new world order of material things that they would become the leadership of. And they have desires for leadership and recognition by people, and being in like what they think are these power and control positions over people's thoughts and opinions and things like this. The actual revelation of Baha'u'llah is totally the opposite of this. It's a one crusade against the insistent self for the spiritual growth and development of the individual believer. And for those people who are Baha'is that remain under the covenant, we have work that we do to contribute to the world in having them elect the Supreme Tribunal, which will bring peace to the earth. And this will be elected by all the different people of the world and different nations and cultures and people of different religious backgrounds. It says that all the people and their diversity will flow to the mountain of the house of the Lord, and they'll learn war no more. That part's the school and the Baha'i education we have. But the actual election of the Supreme Tribunal, Baha'u'llah and abdulbaha have specified that the people don't need to convert to the specific religion of being Baha'is specifically. That if they're Jewish or Christian or Muslim or other religions and indigenous, and they understand the oneness of humanity, and they want to uphold the International Covenant of Peace that outlaws war in 1928, then they will elect a Supreme Tribunal. And they've been doing this in imitation of the Baha'i plan in the World Court, the League of Nations, and the United Nations that has now failed with this current crisis. So the reason Abdulbaha says that it's failed is it's not representative. They never elected it from grassroots, so it doesn't represent all the people. Abdulbaha states the Supreme Tribunal needs to be elected in such a way that the local people send delegates to the nation. The national ones elect a body of electorates that elect the representatives who will sit on the Supreme Tribunal. And then these have to be confirmed by the upper and lower house of the government and also the executive branch of the government. And in this letter that he wrote to The Hague, in no place does he state that the people have to switch cultures or religions to participate in this. Not at all. This is for all people. So when we say Bahai government, we would consider the Supreme Tribunal, from our perspective, to be a Bahai government if it's elected correctly. But that doesn't mean that the people that are electing it, have converted to a religion different than their religion of origin. To be a Bahai, from the Bahai perspective, means to simply love all the world and serve humanity. This a violation of the covenant that turned into creating another organized religion and getting people to sign cards and join a group in competition or deference to the other established world religions is not the revelation of Bahaullah. In the World Order of Bahaullah, Shoghi افندی quotes Bahaullah where he says that they should go back to the roots of their own indigenous faith and deepen in those, and there they will find the understanding of what the revelation of Bahaullah truly is. And the gift of the Baha'i revelation is the election of this Supreme Tribunal. This is very important. We've never had a United Nations or a League of Nations or a World Court that's been set up correctly that can prevent war from happening. So when we have a World Council of Nations, the Bahais will support it and consider it to be a Bahai government for the material earth. But the Bahai work that the Bahais are doing is educational. It says they'll learn more no more. And our House of the Lord, our Universal House of Justice, is the school, the International Bahai Council House of Justice, to give guidance to the people. In Abdulbaha's tablet on the art of government, the Risala Siyasiya, he states that the spiritual leaders just give guidance. They're not to meddle with or manipulate or pressure or use stunts or antics to control and manipulate the governments of the world. They're just to give the governments the guidance they need, and the governments have to figure out how to implement the solution for the current crisis. And right now, in conclusion to this question's answer or response, our guidance is that the nations of the world, especially England, France, the United States, and Russia, as four key nations, need to come together to restructure and elect the Supreme Tribunal correctly and move away from the structure of the United Nations that failed. And that's our guidance. And if they don't implement the guidance we have, the warnings are in the religious text too about the calamity and the thermonuclear war and all the things that the people are talking about today. So we have guidance for the people and nations of the world. And we have our own administration in our school, like any school has an administration, which is the government within our school. And we don't use force or coercion in any way at all in the free and open society of the Bahai international community that we have, the international community of the covenant. And the force needs to be a servant of justice is one of the things we have as a guidance to the secular or material governments of the world, so that they can take upon themselves spiritual qualities and attributes to uphold the oneness of humanity and to elect the Supreme Tribunal that'll bring peace to the earth.